Okay, I'm going to try to teach you this round layer haircut um, as quickly as I can. Okay, so I did some pre-parting just to sort of speed this process along. You won't do this at state, you'll do this when they tell you to start. So I have already parted her hair. Sorry about the window behind me. No, wrong way. So I parted her hair. Um, I did, oh, it's all backwards. I did her profile part or profile guide parting, which is about 1 inch wide. And then I separated out the two sides of her hair. And then I also parted out this section here in the back. It's about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch wide. I would say about 1/2 inch wide uh, to do your razor cut. So you won't have any of this done when they tell you to begin. I just did this for demonstration purposes. Okay, so they're going to tell you to begin. So the first thing you're going to do is you don't have to do any of this parting. I would just section out this part here because you only have 30 minutes to do this haircut, right? So section this part of her hair and you can clip all of this up. If you want to, you can do this profile part. You can do all this sectioning if you want and then do this part. Practice it, see what works for you, okay? But so the first part of your haircut is going to be this. So they want you to do use your razor. So I have my razor in my hand. This is the type of razor that I am using right now. It doesn't have the little finger ring on it. So we're just gonna roll with that. So I have about a 1/2 inch section. I'm gonna comb it down just like you would do if you were in the salon. So don't do the whole chunk. So at state, you're gonna cut off 1 inch of hair, a minimum of 1 inch. While you're practicing, just do little bits, maybe 1/4 inch, so that you preserve some length so that you can keep practicing, okay? So we're going to bring her straight down, and they're looking for safety with your razor, so hopefully you can see what's going on here. Safety, so don't put your razor right on top of your fingers here because that would be considered not safe, even though your razor has some safety edges on it. So I go just a little bit above my fingers, hopefully you can see, and if you just push, it'll cut, okay? This doesn't have to be an incredibly beautiful line because you're going to go back in with your shears and tidy this up, okay? So you can either push like I did or you can kind of comb. Comb. This is not the sharpest razor in the world. Okay. So we're going to go all the way across. We're going to do the other side. Let's see if this side's sharper. Oh, it is. There we go. So all I did was push. You don't have to go back in and straighten that out. Do 3 or 4 little cuts with it. They're just looking to see that you know how to use a razor safely, okay? So then this would go into your soiled implement bag. So because you're never going to use this again. So just go ahead and get rid of it. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. Okay, so we've done that. So then you're going to go in, if you haven't already done it, and you're going to section out her hair. I like to do it this way. Again, this is just how I like to cut the haircut. If these sections and partings don't work for you, you section and parting how you feel comfortable sectioning and parting. This is just sort of a quick and dirty way that I like to do it to get through it because you only got 30 minutes. Okay, so, but for sure you need to do her profile section. Okay, so I have divided it into 2 sections just so it doesn't all get into my way. Got my shears. Make sure you're holding your shears properly because they're going to be watching that. I'm sorry if I get all wonky in this video. The video goes backwards. It's weird. Okay. So I like to keep a clip just to keep things out of my way because you will be starting at the bottom, which is kind of not a normal way to cut this haircut. So stuff kind of gets in your way. So you want to take small sections, okay? And you're going to be using the area that you cut with your razor, you're going to be using that as your guide for length. Okay, and I like to hold underneath this way. Don't take too big of a section, keep it at least 1 inch, because the bigger the section, you're going to over direct to the middle, and then you'll end up with long hair in the middle and shorter hair on the outside, and that'll mess up your haircut. Okay, so When you do this, so there is my guide. I think you can see it. There's my little guide. So this is a 90-degree haircut. So you want to make sure that the part of hair that you're cutting is the part that's coming straight off the head. So 90 degrees from the round of the head. So it's not just straight out 90 degrees this way. The round of her head, this part of her head right here. If I bring it up this way, I'm over directing it. The round of her head comes off at an angle this way. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense since you can't answer me. So I'm going to take a slightly smaller section. So there's my guide, and I only want to cut to my first knuckle because you want to keep your section small so that you can control where you're cutting at, okay? That's why I keep my hand underneath. Oh, my finger's stuck. Keep my hand underneath so that I can cut just a little bit. Okay, and we're just going to take a little bit of that. We're going to come up to our next section. And if you can, use a mirror so that you can kind of see where your angle is. So see, if I bring it up here, it's over directed. If I bring it down here, I'm coming off from the round of her head. So then we're going to use our guide and cut. It's hard to keep my fingers out of the way. And then we're just going to take a section of that. Up. Hopefully this is not confusing you guys. Okay, so now we want to make sure that this is coming off 90 degrees from the round of her head. Cut that, take another piece, let all that go. So if you don't want to take the time to do the clip every single time, just take part of the section you're working on, move it over to the side. And then you can grab another little piece. Make sure that's coming off the round of her head. See, I only have a little section here that I need to cut. Hopefully you can see that. Part of it. So you're going to continue this all the way up, all the way up. And you'll be able to change your hand position when we get a little bit further up. So we're way up here now. I know there's a lot of stuff behind me, but that. Okay. Move this back a little so you can see where we're going. So a little piece of this. Okay, so now you can change your hand position. You can come from the top. But you still want to make sure that you're only getting little tiny sections of hair. And you're still coming off the round of her head. Make sure you don't come down this way. You don't come up this way too far. You want to make sure you're coming off 90 degrees off the round of the head or straight off just the round of her head. And you still don't want to cut way back here. I know it's hard to see, but you don't want to cut way back here past your second knuckle, which I just did. Don't. Okay. So you want to keep your section small. To the head. We're coming straight up. Okay. So I've cut her hair a couple of times now, but once you get up to the top, it's a little harder to see. Once you get up to the top, it's going to feel like you're cutting off a lot more hair because if you haven't cut this hair before, her hair is longer on the top. So, you know, if you have a one length, it's going to be longer on the top. So it's going to feel like you're cutting a lot more at the top, but you're doing fine. So straight up, make sure you're following the round of her head. That. I've never done a haircutting video before. Now we're going to be leaning a little bit forward, not too much. So if you take a big section of hair, it's okay, but just don't cut the whole thing. Because if I take this whole section of hair, and now let me see if I can get behind it so you can see. If I cut this entire section of hair, which is the whole length of my finger, This section here is going to be over directed back. So just cut just a small portion of it. You're going to see as we come around to the front of her hair, you're going to be really leaning forward with her head. Here. God. And it is easier to cut the top of this down at the bottom in the back. You have to kind of lean kind of funny, and it's a little bit hard to see what you're doing. Okay, so see we're still coming up off the round of her head. Head. Bit. And the front of these mannequin heads are real heavy. Not all of them, but most of them. So it's going to feel like a lot of hair. So see when we get to the front here how angled we are just to stay with the round of her head. So I'm tempted to cut it all, but don't do it. There we go. Round of her head. Perfect. Okay. So then I like to just kind of go through and make sure. Do it with your comb and do it with your fingers. Just kind of make sure, because this is going to be your guide through the rest of your haircut. So if you have gotten off somehow, see, I got a little bit of a, it's hard to see, let me get out of the way. I got a little bit of a little knock right there. So I'm going to just tidy that up just a little bit. So this is your guide for your whole haircut. So if you're off anywhere, this is where it'll throw it off. Go through and make sure that we're even. And you can just do this quickly. It doesn't have to be, you know. Okay. So guide is done. So here's the way I like to do this haircut. You might see my cat in a minute here. Sorry. So my first parting is going to be from the top of her ear. Yep, there's my cat. So her occipital parting. I try to do the least amount of partings that I can just because of the timing. Again, this is probably not how you would cut this haircut out in the wild when you're actually doing hair. You would take way more time, smaller partings, smaller sections, smaller subsections, but we're crunched on time here. So do the same to the other side, top of the ear, which is your occipital. Put those up out of the way. And my cat just took my cape. Okay. So now we have, I left her center part. You don't have to tidy it up really because your guide is in there. And then here's her occipital parting, goes from top of her ear to the top of her ear. Okay. So your guide is down the center. So you're going to split that center parting or your guide in half. I'm just going to clip one half out of my way because I don't want it to get in my way. And we're going to repeat the same thing that we did for her profile guide. Okay, so we're going to take the half of the profile guide that we created, and we're going to take, oops, then we're going to take a small section. Keep your subsections about 1/2 an inch or 1/4 of an inch. You don't want them to be too terribly heavy because then they'll be over directed and you'll have some weird links within your haircut. Okay. So this is where I like to clip the hair up on my way. Leave that clip right there. Okay, same thing that we did before. Make sure you can see your guide in there, so that's why you don't want your sections to be too big. All around of her head. So your guide is in there, but if you over direct up or down, you'll still see your guide, but it'll be over directed. Just hopefully that makes sense. So you still want to follow the round of her head. So the round of her head, there's a little section in there. Have that. So take your small subsection. So I have like 3 hairs in here, so I might have taken a slightly too small subsection, but that's okay. There's nothing in there. Okay, so then we're gonna split that section in half. So this is a traveling guide. Some of the, and I'm just gonna clip this out of the way. That. Take a small section. Some of the sections that you will see, or subsections you'll see in some of the diagramming for this haircut, they talk about taking diagonal forward sections. I've done a bunch of research, asked a bunch of hairdressers. Doesn't change the way the haircut ends up if you do vertical sections, which is what we're doing. I found that it just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit faster if you just do vertical. So instead of doing diagonal forward, which would go from this center part angled this way, get this in front of the light, from the center angled, that's a diagonal forward. We're just going straight up and down and traveling the guide. It's just a little bit faster, a little bit easier. You're going to do the same thing. Keep following your guide. I'm just going to keep on going. So you're going to follow this all the way around through the section. Make sure that you're not up. You don't want to come out 90 degrees. I know I keep saying it, but I have a bad habit of doing it, especially when I'm trying to go quickly. And I know that I have seen students in the past do it, so just keep an eye on your 90 degrees from the round of the head, not the 90 degrees straight out. Another section. I like to keep the hair clipped up out of the way because then you're not having to worry about all this hair falling down and did I get it all? So, degrees. I'm just going to keep on cutting. So generally speaking, by the time they call 15 minutes, which is what they'll do, they'll tell you when you have 15 minutes remaining. By the time you hit 15 minutes, you should be done with the back of the head. You should be up here on the top, or at least most of the way through this upper section that we're going to do next. And you have a pretty small area at State, so make sure that you're turning your doll and don't walk around your doll, if that makes sense. Because there's going to be probably a person not right next to you because of social distancing right now, but you do have a taped off area on your table and on your floor. So you just want to make sure that you're staying within your area. And also it's good training for your brain, because when you're in a salon, you do have a chair that moves. I'm real bad about that. I tend to walk around my clients instead of moving my clients to me. This back section, I can do all of these in about 3 little sections. So make sure too that you're not over directing left or right, that you're staying right within the section that you're cutting. That will also over direct and make your haircut a little bit off. So again, they're looking for safety, sanitation. They do grade you on your haircut, like did you complete your haircut, was it even? But I believe the thing that they're looking for mostly is, were you safe, were you sanitary, and then they look at your haircut. So always be safe with your shears and with your razors. If you do cut yourself, stop what you're doing and do a blood exposure procedure. And well, we will go over that or have gone over that if we haven't already. You guys can hear the window outside. So it's super tempting when you get back down here to the end bits to start taking big subsections because, oh, we're right at the end there and we need to move on to the next section. But don't do it. Don't do it. Keep taking your small subsections so that your haircut stays nice and even. Last little section here. Then you would continue on around to the other side just for the sake of time. I'm just going to do the one side so that you guys can see what's happening, but you would then continue. You'd split this section in your profile guide in half and continue that around to the other side. And then you want to kind of cross-check yourself just to make sure. So you would pull from this side and from the other side in the same place and come back and make sure that you're on point to make sure that both sides are the same length. Also, the other thing you can do, since we've been taking vertical subsections, which is up and down, if you just take a horizontal subsection, comb her out, and you can kind of see, I tend to move it back and forth a little bit because we've been pulling every section out 90 degrees. So when you do your horizontal subsection like this, and you pull it out, and I don't know if you can see, it kind of pulls the hair together in kind of a triangle shape. It'll make the hair like shorter on the sides and longer in the middle. So just because of the way that it's been cut. So I will pull it out of my fingers and then I will kind of pull it left and right to make sure that, I know you can't see that, but so I'll kind of pull it one side, pull it over to the other side, just to kind of make sure that we're still on track and everything looks good. There was a couple of hairs that were a little bit long. You could trim those if you want to. If you have a section that's really way off, it means that you missed something or you over-directed something. So wherever that really long section is, I'm going to go in and find it. So say I have a really long section right here. So then you would just go in where that section is really long, take a small subsection, start combing it out and figuring out where things got a little bit. And I actually do have a tiny little spot right here. Nope. Okay. And you can go back in real quick. I don't take a ton of time. I just kind of look, measure from a couple different spots, and we're on track. Okay? So then we're going to do the next section. I like to go from her occipital, or not her occipital, her recession right here, all the way back, so horseshoe, all the way back to her center part. I tend to do it with my fingernail and then clean it up with my comb. You do it. If you need to just do it straight with your comb, that's fine. These are just things that I have started doing in my hair cutting life. Okay, we're going to just clip this up out of my way. We're going to repeat the whole process. Okay, if she starts to dry out, which I am a little bit, I don't have a spray bottle with me right now. Just spritz her down a little bit. You have a spray bottle on your table. Okay, so I'm going to take half my section. Clip this guy out of my way. So you would do that section all the way around. So you would go from occipital to occipital horseshoe all the way around. So you'd go through her crown area to the other side to her occipital, right? Okay, so I'm going to use the correct side of my comb. So when you use your cutting comb, and you guys have all been taught this, I'll just run it by you again. Your combs generally have, oh, this camera is backwards. There we go. You have a white side, white tooth, and finer tooth. Use a finer tooth. It just gives you a little bit more tension on the hair. Okay, so now we're going to continue. So now I'm just going to clip this up out of my way. So I like to leave this bottom section that I've done down because this is where I want to be joining my haircut together, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay. Shears. Okay, so this is where your original parting was at her occipital, right behind her ear. So now we have this new section. So I like to grab just a little bit from the bottom here. Might not have taken enough hair here. Nope, I did. So just a little bit from your bottom section because we want to make sure that, want to make sure that your bottom section and your next section that you're working on are going to match up. Now you do have a guide at your center, your guide, profile guide, your profile guide will give you your guide to length, but I also just like to make sure that it's going to join up with my bottom section. So I just grab a little bit of that, and so sorry, my cat is very helpful. Okay, come out. So we're doing the 90 degrees from around the head. I know I keep saying it, but we're up a little bit higher on the head here. So this section is going to come out almost 90 degrees from our head. Now we're going to come out, turn that off. Okay. That, I like to clip it out of the way. So I have another clip on the other side of her head that I just clip what I've already cut, just to keep it out of the way and I don't go back in and cut more. And I like to leave a clip on her head right here so that I can just clip up what I'm not using. Okay. This section is a little bit narrower, so you don't have to take quite as many cuts. Let's see, that's too much. I lied. It's about 3. It's about three cuts to get through each section on the back of her head. Excuse me. Okay. Let's keep talking because I don't want you guys to have to listen to me breathe. So this section is going to go all the way around to the front. This is where I do it a little bit differently than a lot of the diagrams that you're going to see. Mostly just for speed is the only reason. Like I said, if these sections, parting, subsections don't work for you, try it this way and then modify it to a way that works for you to get to where you need to get with this haircut, if that makes sense to you. They're not looking at, did they use the partings and sections that I think are correct? Not me, but the state. Were they safe? Were they sanitary? Did they arrive at the haircut that they needed to arrive at? So, if going all the way around like this doesn't work for you, part it off into 4 subsections and then divide those subsections out, because you do have a guide in there that's going to lead you through your haircut. Once you cut your profile guide, that guide's going to lead you through your haircut. And so as long as you have a good solid profile guide to lead you around your haircut, you can part it really however you need to. I mean, within reason. You don't want to start doing some weird, crazy partings, but if you feel like you need to do 4 sections and then divide those subsections down differently than I did, that's okay. But my suggestion is that you do try it this way. I do have a head sheet. I have this diagram drawn up on your head sheet, or on a head sheet in Canvas for you guys. So you can look at that and kind of see if this is something that works for you. And we're going to do this in class too, so it's not like I'm just going to cut you loose and hope you figure it out. This is just something you can watch. If you have questions, of course you can always ask me, but if you're working on it at home and you need some visuals. So know that when you're doing this section here, when you get above her ear, it's going to leave kind of a weird little hole above her ear because she doesn't have any hair right here like she did back here. At the end, I will show you how to blend that out because they do check your perimeter at the end. So this haircut is more suited for short hair. It works on long hair, but it is more of a short haircut here. More of a short hair. Blech. Wording is hard this morning. Just a little too big of a section. Slim that up a little bit. If you see that you've taken too big of a section, just narrow it up a little bit. You don't want to just go for it and cut it, because that will be over directing the hair, and then you'll get, once you over direct it in one section, then it'll start messing up your haircut the further along that you go. Just takes one little section to mess up your haircut. So again, we're halving every section that we cut, splitting it in half, grabbing a new piece, traveling your guide through your haircut. 90 degrees from the round of her head. So when you go to state, you can have this haircut already pre-cut. So when you go, it'll already be kind of done for you, and you can just sort of follow what you've already done through your haircut, if that makes sense. So you're not cutting a brand new doll head when you go to state, if that makes sense to you. It's kind of like presetting your curls, so you have kind of a guide to follow. You still have to cut off that inch of hair, but you already have a nice haircut to follow. So before you go to state, take your time and cut this haircut really well, and then you'll have a nice guide to kind of follow throughout your haircut. So you'll be able to see if you've gotten kind of off track. And we can talk about that in class too. So I'm really forward on the front of her head. She is really tipped to the side here. Come on, lady. There we go. Okay. So on the front of her head, this section that I have right here, I don't know if you can really see it, but instead of coming straight out, I had to come forward a little bit. There we go. So if I come straight, this camera, if I come straight off her head like this, it's going to over direct back. So I have to come forward there. Does that make sense? Too over directed. Now you can turn around a bit. Sorry for all this confusion with the camera. I don't know why it's backwards. Okay, so then you would continue all the way around to the other side. Again, since you've done vertical, you're going to just take a horizontal section, double check. You'll need to kind of follow it around, because if you take a section from back here, if you take a section from back here and a section from back here, and kind of move it in the middle, this will seem this short because you're over directing from back here to the center point. Here, yep. And then you can also do like we did before. Piece here, same section ahead, match. This way, or you can this piece over here. Trying to keep her in front of this window. There we go. Pieces from the front here and bring them forward and make sure. So she's a little bit long on this side because I haven't cut that, but just double check. So you just want to keep double checking as you go through your haircut to make sure that you're staying on track with the length. Okay. Okay. So now we're to the top of her head. Wait. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So now you're going to let go, unclip the top of her hair. And you can see on this side a little bit on that. Can you see, oh, for crying out loud, see this hole right here? It's longer back here and shorter up here. Gives her kind of a little mullet. So I'll show you how to kind of tidy that up a little bit when we get to the end here. Okay, so we're at the front. So we are going to comb this down. We're going to reestablish her center part. I want you to stay on. So just reestablish your center part, find your nose. You don't have to redo your profile guide, the 1-inch profile guide, just part her hair down the center. Probably at this point you'd want to give her a little spritzy because it's been a few minutes. Okay, so your haircut, oops, now she's stuck on here. Your haircut ended, we did a horseshoe which ended right about here at her crown. So you want to make sure that you're pulling from here. You're going to do horizontal partings across the top of her head now, this way. Okay? This is the last little bit of her haircut. So, keeping your sections small, start in the center. You can see this. Continue following the round of her head. So if you have to kind of not overdirect, but pull it back a little bit, because if you come straight up, that's over directing forward. So you have to keep the round of her head, come back this way. So my guide is right in here, and I have a few little long wispies on the side, so I'm going to even this out. Then I'm going to continue this part. You can clip this hair out of the way if you want, or you can get it really wet and just comb it. Straightforward. I like to clip it, keep it out of my way so I'm not combing up a bunch of stuff. So now we're going to continue this around the round of her head until we meet up with the section that we've cut in her horseshoe section. Does that make sense? I can see my little guide in there. So we're going to give her a little cut. Cut. 90 degrees from the round of her head. Pull this around, and oh, look at that. I've met up with the area that I have already cut. Okay, and you do the same to this side. Follow it around until you meet up with the area that you've already cut in her horseshoe area. Okay, so now we're just going to keep on keeping on. Do not clip these to your aprons. It's a safety sanitation thing. It's so tempting. I want to do it, but don't do it. Then you're going to take your next section. So you don't need to travel this guide across the top because you already have your profile guide here. So you don't have to like take half of this section and move it forward. Next section, make sure you don't take too big because that will over direct it, and then it'll get longer in the front, which is nice when you're doing a real haircut because I like to leave a little length in the front if that's what they're looking for. But for this haircut, no, don't do it. Guide. If I was going both directions, I would come over here, cut this side. And we're just going to part all the way down. On this forward. I have this clip to the back of her head. Wasn't on me. Don't take too big of a section because you want to still be trying to cut within this first knuckle area and make sure you're still 90 degrees from the round of her head. Section. It's going to be the most rambling video. Okay. Keep on going until you come around to the part where you have cut, and I can see my little guide in there. Okay. Do it again. Yep, so as you come forward, you're going to be kind of leaning your hand forward a little bit more, not straight up off, not straight up because the round of her head is, you're going to lean your hand forward just a little bit. Let's see if I can show you. Now she's stuck on her. Don't do this to your client. So when I pull this section up, I don't want to pull it back this way. Let's see. There we go. So if I pull it back this way, if I come straight up, this part of it right here is a little over directed, so you want to make sure you're coming just a little bit forward, not too terribly much, but that doesn't happen until a little bit closer to the front of her head. And make sure that you're palming your shears correctly. Watch for that stuff. I have actually cut my own hair by not palming my shears correctly. The tip of them open just ever so slightly. Okay. Again, so just keep doing this until you get both sides completed. Degrees, copy here. Now we're up at the front, so you still want to make sure you're at 90 degrees from the round of her head. Okay, this is our last section. So this is the one that always gets over directed back this way. Make sure that you come off the round of her head. See how kind of really angled forward it is. I really want to do it this way, but you want to make sure that you angle it out off of the round of her head. So I suggest that you do, go one side on a section and then go to the other side. Like as you do, I would do this part and then go to the other side just to keep it even. You don't want to do one side of the head, the whole head, and then the other side of the whole head. Just so that you're going. Just in case you don't get finished with the whole haircut, at least you have, they can check a section and okay. Clip out of there. Okay, and again, you've done horizontal this way. You can still take a horizontal parting this way and check as long as she's got, in the middle, and we're still on. Okay, so the last thing that you're going to want to do is clean up your perimeter. Okay, so we have this hole. You can really see it now. Let me part it out a little bit. See that hole right there? It's just because of her ear and having no hair there. So what you want to do is you want to go around the bottom and just make sure you don't have to do any weird sectioning or anything. Just come around the bottom and straighten out all the way around like you were doing a one length, but just little bits of hair off. Okay? Coming around. Once you get around to the side, when you comb it down, you're going to see kind of an angle. It's going to go straight and then it's going to start to angle up this way. So this is where I start to kind of point cut it, because you don't want to cut it, because if you cut it to match, I'll show you. If you cut it to match, she's going to have a really bad mullet because it's short up here, and if you try to blend this to match, you're going to cut off all this hair. So mostly just trying to blend this hole right here. So just point cut and blend out that hole a little bit. I mean, you're going to create a little bit of an angle, but we're just trying to blend that line. It's going to be shorter up here. And if you want, you can take a little bit more of this section right here so that it's not quite so chunky right there. I'm doing this from a very strange angle, so. But I like to point cut because then you're not creating a really harsh line, but it is still blending out. Okay. So So you do that on both sides, and then when you're done with the haircut, you're gonna don't clean up any of your hair. Put all your stuff down, sanitize your hands, and wait, and they'll come around and talk to you. They'll just ask you, may I have a comb to check your haircut? And they're gonna check your haircut. So when you are practicing this on your own, I want you to double check, cross check your own haircut. So while you're cutting your hair, make sure you're checking. And then when they check, they're going to check your perimeter. So they're going to come around and they check it pretty thoroughly. So they're going to check, make sure that your ends are even. They come through, do some diagonals. Oop, I missed a little piece right there. They're going to check your front to make sure that you're even all the way across. They may pull from both sides to make sure, so they check it pretty thoroughly. Do not panic about that, okay? You will still pass your state board if your haircut is not 100% the most perfect haircut you've ever cut in the world, okay? So that is your state board haircut. Practice it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you in class.